You ever get that feeling? Like there's more to this life than what we can see? Not in a dramatic, sci-fi kind of way, but something deeper, something that whispers beneath the noise of everyday life, a quiet knowing that there's something spiritual going on beneath the surface. Edgar Cayce felt that too. Long before most people were even talking about consciousness or past lives or souls that could transcend the body, Cayce was there, quietly tuning in, listening, sharing insights that, even today, feel strangely timely. Now, what he said, it wasn't always easy to digest. One of the most controversial ideas he ever voiced was this: not everyone walking around actually has a soul. Yeah, let that settle for a second. We like to believe that being human automatically means being spiritual, that every person we meet is somehow on the same energetic journey we are. But Cayce suggested something different, something that shakes up the way we think about existence, empathy, and even evil. But before we dive too deep, let's pause for a moment, because this isn't just some esoteric theory or fringe belief. This touches the very core of how we see ourselves and others. So, where does this idea come from? That some people might not have a soul? It sounds harsh, doesn't it? Almost judgmental. But Cayce wasn't coming from a place of arrogance or superiority. He wasn't saying some folks are less than or beyond saving. His view was a lot more layered than that. To him, the soul wasn't just something you're given by default. It wasn't some automatic stamp you get at birth, like a name or a social security number. Instead, the soul was something you grow into, something you awaken to over time. And that awakening, it's not guaranteed. See, Cayce believed that we're all spiritual beings, but not all of us are fully conscious of that spirit. Not everyone is awake to the reality of the soul. Some people, according to him, are kind of stuck in the material, trapped in ego, disconnected from that divine spark that makes life sacred. He wasn't saying they're evil or soulless monsters. No, nothing like that. It's more like this. Imagine someone who's living on autopilot, chasing power, money, control, but never stopping to ask why. Never feeling that pull towards something higher. Never wondering about purpose or meaning or connection. That's the kind of soul sleep Cayce was talking about. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many people do we pass every day who are living that way, fully functioning, talking, smiling, working, building lives, but something inside is quiet, asleep, untouched. So what does it mean to have a soul? Or more importantly, to become one? Because in Cayce's view, the soul isn't something you possess like an object. It's something you are. Or rather, something you're becoming. It's kind of beautiful when you think about it. He described the soul as this eternal, evolving essence. Something that existed long before our current life and will continue long after. But it doesn't just sit still. It moves. It learns. It stretches and reshapes itself through every experience, every lifetime. But here's the catch. That growth, it's not automatic. It takes will. It takes choice. The soul isn't like a machine that runs no matter what. It's more like a fire that needs tending. And if someone spends lifetime after lifetime resisting growth, closing themselves off, chasing nothing but the physical world, that flame, it can grow dim, or worse, go dormant. Now, Cayce didn't believe anyone was damned or beyond redemption. He saw each soul as having infinite chances to awaken, to remember where it came from. But in the meantime, some people, they're just not there yet. They might look like you, talk like you, even laugh and cry and fall in love. But deep inside, they're not connected to that higher current. They're living in the shell without ever realizing there's something inside it. And that's the unsettling part. Because if someone's soul is asleep or unawakened, what guides their actions? What keeps them grounded in compassion, in empathy? Sometimes it doesn't. And that's where things get messy. You ever look at the world and think, how could someone do something like that? We've all had those moments. A story on the news, a headline that doesn't make sense, something so cruel, so cold, it makes you feel sick just thinking about it. And you wonder, what kind of person could even be capable of that? Cayce's perspective offers one possible answer. Some people aren't acting from the soul, because for them, the soul isn't active. It's disconnected, unreachable, asleep. He believed that when a soul isn't awake, when it's not guiding the person from within, there's nothing holding back the darker impulses, nothing filtering the ego or tempering the hunger for control or reminding them, hey, that's not who you are. It's like the compass is broken or maybe missing altogether. And here's where it gets complicated. See, Cayce didn't say those people were born evil. He didn't even say they were hopeless. He said they were lost, spiritually numb, disconnected from that divine origin that reminds us of our shared humanity. But the consequences of that numbness, they ripple out. Because when someone operates purely from the ego, driven by fear, greed, power, they can do terrible things without blinking. And we, watching from the outside, try to make sense of it through logic, psychology, even politics. But sometimes it's spiritual. Sometimes the soul just isn't online. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not just that harm was done, but that the one causing it might not even know what they've lost or who they truly are. So, what happens next? What about those people Cayce said were spiritually asleep? Are they stuck that way forever? Not at all. In fact, Cayce believed that awakening is always possible for anyone. That spark, that divine essence, it never truly disappears. It might be buried under years of pain, denial, distraction, but it's still there, waiting, like a light flickering behind a closed door. And sometimes, life has a way of cracking that door open. A loss, a moment of stillness, a breakdown that becomes a breakthrough. Something, anything that shakes a person out of autopilot and forces them to ask the questions they've been avoiding. Who am I? Why am I here? What if there's more? That's the moment things begin to shift. Cayce talked a lot about this inner awakening, not as some dramatic overnight change, but as a slow remembering, a realignment with something eternal. He believed that even the most lost soul could return to its source, could choose at any moment to step back onto the path. But it takes something real, something honest. You have to want to know, to feel, to reconnect with something higher than the noise of daily life. And that's not easy in a world that keeps telling you to stay distracted, to keep chasing, to keep performing. Still, the invitation is always there. And the soul, it's patient, it waits. And when you're ready, it answers. What if one life isn't the whole story? That's something Edgar Cayce spoke about often, and with deep conviction. He believed the soul doesn't just live once and vanish. It returns again and again. Different names, different bodies, same essence, learning as it goes. To him, reincarnation wasn't just a mystical idea. It was the framework for how the soul grows, how it learns, how it heals. You might carry wounds from a life you don't even remember, or meet someone and feel an unexplainable pull, as if your souls already know each other. That's the kind of pattern Cayce believed in, that nothing is random, that we come back, not by accident, but with purpose. Sometimes to finish what we started, sometimes to balance what we broke, and sometimes just to remember. Because here's the thing, if someone doesn't wake up in this life, there's always the next, or the one after that. The soul is patient. It plays the long game. And that means the people Cayce said were soulless, maybe they're not soulless at all. Maybe they're just early in the journey. Maybe this lifetime is just one stop on a much longer road they haven't learned how to walk yet. You never know where someone is on their path. And that's kind of comforting, isn't it? Because it means that even in a world full of brokenness, there's still hope. Hope that every soul, no matter how far gone, can find its way back. Maybe not today, maybe not even in this life, but someday. Here's something Cayce understood that we don't always talk about enough. Awakening, it's not a solo act. We're not just wandering through this life in isolation, bumping into people by coincidence. Every interaction, every connection, it's part of something bigger, a web of energy, a dance of souls. And sometimes your light becomes the invitation for someone else to find theirs. It could be something small, a moment of kindness, a quiet truth. Even just your presence, authentic, grounded, awake, can remind someone of who they really are underneath all the noise. That's what Cayce meant when he talked about being a channel for spiritual energy. Not some grand mystical role, just being open, being real, being willing to see the soul in others, even when they can't see it in themselves. Because the truth is, some people have forgotten. They've gone numb or bitter, or so wrapped in fear they can't feel their own heart beating. But when they meet someone who's living differently, who carries peace instead of control, compassion instead of judgment, it stirs something. It's like a mirror or a memory. And even if they can't explain it, part of them remembers. That's the power we carry. Quiet but profound. You don't have to preach. You don't have to fix. You just have to live from your soul and let that speak for itself. Because sometimes that's enough to wake someone else up. You know what's easy? Thinking that the spiritual stuff happens somewhere else. Like in temples, in sacred texts, on mountaintops or meditation cushions. Anywhere but here, where the dishes pile up, the bills are due, and the people around us aren't always easy to love. But Cayce saw it differently. He believed the soul grows right here, in the mess, in the grind, in the way we show up when things don't go our way. This life, the one you're living right now, it's It's not a distraction from your spiritual path. It is the path. Your relationships, that job you're not sure you're meant for, the family member who triggers something deep in you. Yeah, all of that. That's your classroom. Because Cayce taught that the soul doesn't evolve through theory. It grows through choices, through action, through staying present when it would be easier to run, and loving when it would be easier to close off. He even said that our challenges are often chosen, not by accident, not as punishment, but as opportunities. Opportunities to remember, to forgive, to become more of who we really are. And that changes how you see things, doesn't it? Suddenly, that frustrating moment isn't just noise. It's a chance. A moment to choose soul over ego, light over fear. That's the real spiritual work. Not escaping life, but living it with presence, with love, with awareness of who you are beneath the surface. There's one idea Cayce returned to again and again. Something so big, so quietly revolutionary, it still gives people pause. You are divine. Not in a metaphorical, you're special kind of way, but literally. Cayce believed each soul is a spark of the Creator. Not separate, not lesser, but a piece of the infinite. That means your soul, it carries the imprint of something eternal. And the journey you're on, it's not about becoming worthy of the divine. It's about remembering that you already are. Let that sink in for a second, because so many of us grow up believing the opposite, that we're flawed, fallen, that we have to earn love or prove our value through perfection or suffering. But Cayce said no. The soul is already sacred. What we're doing here is learning how to live like it, learning how to bring that divinity into the way we speak, the way we treat others, the way we forgive and create and give without expecting anything back. And the wild part, he believed this is true for everyone, even the people who seem lost, even the ones who forget or fight it or turn their back on that truth. They're divine too. They just don't know it yet. That's why judgment doesn't really work, because when we look at someone and only see what they've done wrong, we miss the deeper truth, that there's still something holy in them, even if it's buried. And maybe that's the most powerful thing we can do for one another. Not just see what someone is, but who they could be if they remembered what they really are. So, after all this, what are we left with? This idea that not everyone has a soul. It's not about separation. Not really. It's not about judging or fearing each other. It's about understanding where people are on their path. Cayce never said some people were beyond saving. He didn't paint the world in black and white. What he offered was a map, a deeper way of seeing. Some souls are wide awake, burning with love, with purpose, with the memory of where they came from. Some are still stretching, still wiping the sleep from their eyes, and some are deep in forgetting, living in the shell, unaware of the light inside. But no one is stuck forever. The soul is timeless, and life, this life, the next, and everyone to come is a chance to come home, to remember, to choose love again and again until it becomes who we are. You're not here by accident, and neither is anyone else. Maybe the people who seem the most lost are the ones who need our compassion the most. Not our approval, not our agreement, just our presence. Because the truth is, we're all walking each other home, one soul at a time. The soul cannot be destroyed. It can only be forgotten and then remembered.